We promised that we would have a conversation with the artist, Camila, with Sonal, and with Peter, our parting artist, around art and conservation and how they play off one another. So please stay. We have some chairs around. If somebody needs a seat, just signal and we'll make sure that we get you a chair. Sonal?
Yes. Well, hi, I'm Sonal. I'm from the Table and Gallery, and I just want to say thank you to every single one of you that took the time to come out to connect with nature and also to introduce Camila to the Connecticut Audubon Society and the local community here in Stratford. And I want to sincerely thank Joyce for being so gracious and so kind in educating us on what the Connecticut Audubon Society does. And there's so much alignment with what Camila's doing as a climate artist and with her environmental studies at Yale, and then alongside myself, who is a nature lover and found Connecticut Audubon Society by happenstance. It was serendipity. I was driving and I needed a moment from my commute. So I pulled over and I saw a sign outside and it just said birdcraft, and it grabbed my attention, and I just drove in and I walked out, and it was the story about Mabel. And when I read the story about Mabel, I immediately said, that is Camila. This is exactly what Camila is doing. And you know, Peter gave me a little background story that it was 1914 that she put the place together. So everything, I would like to say the birds brought us here, where we made this connection through the gracious birds. So Joyce, I'm going to pass it on to you, and thank you.
As you noted, Mabel Osgood, our founder, founded the Connecticut Audubon Society in 1898. Mabel was an author. She was a photographer. She had this artistic eye. And so for her, nature always inspired her art. And when we go back through time, we look at the artists that were inspired by nature and really inspired their art, then went on to inspire a conservation movement. So Mabel Osgood Wright and a lot of women who joined Audubon societies nationwide, the state Audubon societies, of which we were one of them, really created that whole conservation movement in that era. They fought for the legislation, for the Migratory Bird Treaty Act, the Endangered Species Act. They were fighting the fight to protect these birds, and they saw it as part of their art, but also were inspired to say, I want to see those forever. So it's so wonderful to have Camila, who's now looking at climate change and saying, climate change in birds is inspiring my art so that I can then create an interconnectedness among people and really take that, not just even locally, but go globally, and take it beyond our borders. Your images are to spark environmental imagination. I saw you wrote that on your site. And for that, you see the climate change as an opportunity for changing and confronting our practices of consumption. And the fact that we're holding this event at this location, which is our newest location, but also happens to be a remediated brownfield site. This property in the 1920s was a gun club. It was a Remington Arms shooting range demonstration of their firearms, and became contaminated with lead. And the prior owner spent about 10 years and millions of dollars to remediate this site and restore it, and in conjunction with Audubon, really rebuilt coastal habitat, native coastal habitat here, so that today we have state-listed plants, birds, and butterflies at this location. We can change, as Camila sees. Like, if we all get together, we can change the damage that we did, that was done in the past, and we can improve ourselves going forward. And I really see, I see your art inspiring that next generation of conservation leaders saying that we can do better. And this is what we really want to protect and have here. Trying to make sure I get everything. Your art depicts not just the threats, but it depicts hope. Each year we write an annual State of the Birds, Connecticut State of the Birds report. And our report talks about what are the challenges to birds. So in 2019, a report came out that said 3 billion birds have been lost since 1970. And we were all horrified to hear 3 billion birds. And it's not just the exotic birds, these are our common birds. Our robins, our bluebirds, these are in decline. Chickadees, major decline in most of our cities in Connecticut. But we can do something to change it. And so this year we're looking at what's happening globally and what's happening across the country and what are conservation groups doing. And not just working within our one location, but thinking much bigger on that landscape scale to really, how do we have the impact to turn this around and bring hope for our birds? And our report this year has a few reports where there's hope. Like, we've been making some changes. We've changed what we're doing. We're collaborating. We're creating that interconnectedness. And it's all important for us to protect these birds. So, Camila, as I invite you to come up and speak, but Sonal, can you speak next?
Yes. Should we take a seat? And Camila, please join us. So alongside Camila's art, we'd like to also honor Peter, who has created these beautiful bird carvings, to also join us. And we briefly chatted, and I said, Peter, you have a wealth of knowledge and experience when it comes to conservation, and we would love to have you sit alongside us.
I'm happy to do that, thank you.
Thank you. So, I'm not going to keep you all standing for too long. I'm going to go straight to the point here. Camila's artwork is up for sale. And this beautiful artwork called the Purple Martin, all the proceeds are going back to Connecticut Audubon Society. She had created this special piece just to honor not just the relationship that we're building with Connecticut Audubon Society, but also to pay honor to what you're doing, you know, saving what's happening around here and bringing more awareness that we do need young voices like Camila to really advocate with what's happening. And I am the founder and owner of the Table and Gallery. So as I was saying to Peter at the Table and Gallery, I like to say there's no starving artists. We all gather around the table and we have these conversations. And inspired by Joyce, Camila and another student, Megan, we sat around the table, and as passionate as we are with raising awareness with conservation and climate, we started a nonprofit organization called the Green Table Alliance. And we would love to continue that dialogue and learn more about your experience with what you have done with the land and someone pass it on.
Thank you.
Yes.
I have a very firm belief that each of us is born to a place and a time. I was born to my grandparents' dairy farm in Litchfield, Connecticut. And so my first 18 years were as a dairy farmer's only son. So I learned a lot of things. I learned how to work 365 days a year. But the most important thing I learned was the connection with the land. So I grew up in the fields. I grew up in the woods. I spent a portion of every day out there in the sun, the rain, all of it. And so I formed a connection with nature that is unshakable. And that's part of what I do in my artwork. You know, I create these replicated birds, and it gives me great joy to do it. And so it's fun to share it with all of you, to have you see them. But the thing I would say to you is that the future of the earth and the future of our kind depends on how we relate to the land, how we use our land, how we relate to each other in the use of that land. And the future depends on the cooperation and collaboration between organizations, between people. So I couldn't be happier to share this time at this beautiful property with Connecticut Audubon and learn about people who are trying to make a difference. And I do believe we all make a difference. My small difference, beyond leaving, I think, 3 quite successful children and now grandchildren, is that we have a 340-acre farm. And I say we because my wife Eileen is sitting right there in the blue shirt. And it's Arbutus Farm. It's named for the wildflower Arbutus, which some of you may know. And we've dedicated the entire farm to conservation. So we have permanent conservation easements on all of our acres there. So it will never be developed. It will never be anything but open space, farmland, and a sanctuary for birds and animals. We don't cut our hay. We don't allow the hay to be cut until July 15th. So all our nesting meadow birds will be protected, as well as all the animals and insects that depend on the grass. And we have a wonderful population of nesting field birds like bobolinks. We have 3 nesting pair of eastern meadowlarks now. So we're dedicated to that purpose. And I've had the wonderful career of being a lawyer in my community and representing a lot of landowners. And I've become a spokesman for the protection of our land, been very involved with our land trusts, and the future of all of us depend on our collaborative efforts, our collaborative commitment, your charitable intention. You know, when I talk to landowners about the legacy of their land and how that can be important for the future of all of us, including all of our furred and feathered friends, it all comes back to having the commitment and the charitable intention to do that. So sometimes sometimes you have to dig a little deeper to find your charitable intent, and I encourage all of us to do that. And it's something I struggle with, but I'm more and more comfortable in my older life with. And I say to you with great respect that where we stand right now, and you look at the beauty of this property on this point of land with this ocean around us, and imagine all the creatures that depend on this land, this oasis here on the Long Island Sound. I couldn't say enough about this and about its future and what it means to all of us to have these properties and to have an organization that is committed to its purposes like this, and to hear about a new nonprofit that will again bring collaboration and cooperation to all of us in the purpose of sustainability is extraordinary. And so I'm happy to share these few words and share my brief history with you. And it means a great deal to be in the presence of like-minded people. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you so much.
Hello. So you already know me because I was giving a few remarks on the nature walk, but I guess I wanted to introduce myself again. My name is Camila, and I'm really excited to be a part of an intergenerational panel right now. I want to point out something that is very obvious. I'm the youngest person here. And that also means that I have a very fresh outlook. I am sort of naive in the sense that I am a firm believer that we can change the way that we interact with nature in order to be a more productive relationship. And that's kind of what I'm working for. I grew up in Miami, which is a city right now that's facing a lot of risks considering the sea level rise. My mother, she grew up in Puerto Rico. It's an island community that is facing hurricanes every year. And it's just, you're all constantly battered with this information saying, okay, this is a reason to be mad at the world, this is a reason to lose hope, this is a reason to, I guess, just ball up and feel like there's no reason to be interested in conservation and environmentalism, but there is. What gives me hope, honestly, is the artists in the room. Seeing your work, I see the eye in which you, how do I say this? I think you can see the beauty that you see in the world through your photography, and, through your pieces. When you are making a piece, it's because something inspired you. And I think when someone sees your piece, they also become just as inspired as you were. And so I hope to do a similar thing with my work as well. I hope for that inspiration that I felt when I was making it to be transmitted to you. And yeah, I think I'm going to touch upon the Green Table Alliance because Sonal did a great job of introducing it. So a few months ago, I met a girl who is currently at Stanford, and she is focused on a garden,
Sustainable garden farming.
Sustainable garden farming. And then when she told me her story, I found that we had a lot of synergies. We both cared to look at the world from this creative lens. We both had such a hope for how we want to change the system. And we kind of we jumped for it. We decided, hey, let's join in a bond with Sonal and start a nonprofit that is seeking to work with local communities in order to implement a more sustainable practice. And realistically, that just means we're creating bonds and alliances through different community members and creating this table for people to come together and discuss how they want to change the world. And then artists will be facilitating this conversation, so it will be inherently creative. And this is a new endeavor. We are not coming at this, though, from an unknown background. We both are climate activists. We have worked before with nonprofits and leading various environmental efforts. So this would be, I guess, the next step in moving forward. And so I think I'm very excited to be in there with you and sharing this air of hope with you. I hope that you can feel emboldened to ask me some questions about my work. I'm really excited to share those stories, and then each and every piece, they all were created from a very different headspace.
And so as a small business owner in New Haven, Connecticut, there's this young girl that comes into my establishment with these bright eyes and ambition. And as soon as we started having this conversation, and this was 3 years ago, so I'm watching her grow each year in her college years, and our conversations are getting more and more deeper and understanding that we cannot do this alone. And this can only happen through joining hands with other members. And I preach about my business, that my healing and transformational journey did not happen overnight. It happened through the influence of my environment. And I cannot take care of myself if I do not take care of the environment. So it's so important that we honor that when we do have a moment to go outside, to breathe, to hear those birds singing, and what it does to us on a cellular level. It changes us, it nourishes us, and we need this, especially in the world where we live in now. That healing can be found around our own natural environment. So this is not just raising advocacy, but raising how it matters for our overall well-being and our mental health. And for Camila, you know, there's not many individuals that come here and say, hey, I'm advocating for the local community, but she's going on a global platform where all the United Nations delegates are going to come together from all over the world in November in Brazil. And this girl who's in this room is going on an international platform to advocate for this.
Some background on that. So I'm the delegate for Yale at the United Nations Framework Convention to combat climate change, which essentially means I'm the youth voice for Yale that's organizing an initiative to, I guess, push the ambassadors to be very forthright in their commitments that they're putting on that document. And a lot of my work is kind of fueling that passion and putting it on paper. So that's some background on that.
And Joyce, thank you so much for just, you inspired us. And because of your inspiration and Melissa giving us a tour, it gave birth to the Green Table Alliance, which we're sharing for the first time here on this platform. And so I'm going to pass it on to you and say thank you so much. Peter, thank you so much. It's such an honor to meet you.
Yeah. We're so thrilled. I think that's a great Green Table Alliance, a great way to tie everybody together. You were talking about the art piece, the Purple Martins. this is a true demonstration of what we can do. Purple martins, really, because they rely, they're cavity nesters, and they rely really on dead trees with cavities, which in our current environment and a manicured landscaped environment is not a welcome sight anymore. They rely entirely on human intervention. In Connecticut, because of volunteers, when you see those gourd towers or those purple martin condos that are being put up, the volunteers that tend those have increased the population in the state of Connecticut to the point that their threatened level has been stepped down, and they're now of special concern, and they're not as threatened. But it takes that human interaction, and so Camila's artwork, your artwork to me shows not just its threats, but the spiraling birds going up show the hope, the potential that we can achieve. And I think you going and talking in Brazil and talking about how art can inspire conservation is so critical to how we're going to be looking forward. Thank you.
It was just such a blessing to be here around all of you. I would love to just take questions, I guess.
Yes.
If you're curious.
If anyone has any questions at all, please take, yes.
I do. Could you describe this painting, where you were when you were painting it? Were you outdoors? What is your process as an artist in this particular piece?
So I think we've all experienced moments where we just have an over-bubbling of emotion and it's just like, you're just frustrated, or maybe you're exceptionally happy or sorrowful. This one was actually made with a lot of frustration and anger. I was walking in nature, and I was thinking about some conversations I had with some colleagues about a particular environmental matter, and I felt like the words that were needed in order to reach like a consensus was not getting there. And there was just this block between us, and we couldn't feel this connection about a shared goal. And so I went back to my room and I was like, I'm just going to put it on paper. And this was, I guess, born out of a lot of that frustration and loose brushstrokes. A lot of my practice is inspired by the Japanese method of putting ink on paper. And I hope you can tell a little bit on this one. They are very fluid and loose with the wrist. And then afterwards, they'll put more details on it. So that's how this one was created, just with a lot of emotion. And then afterwards, I would go in and add the detailed bits.
Thank you.
How long does it take to make one of your paintings?
Depends. I think, for instance, this one on the wall, it took me about 2 months. This one, it took me about a week. And then each of the ones outside, they took between 2-3 weeks to maybe 2 months. And I think a lot of creating a piece happens in the in-between time. I'm not sure if this is the same for you, but maybe, at least for me, my creative process is over a long period of time. Like, I start making it, then I step back and I think about it, and then I'll come back and I'll edit it, or I'll add what I think is missing, the spirit that is missing, and so that's just the process of me making a piece. Because, I don't know, I think you change too as a person over time, and I hope for a piece that I make to show that change, and to capture that change.
I start with a block of wood, so it's a little different, but I have the same frustrations and anger at times. It's not hard to look at the news and not feel anger and frustration these days, but people often ask how long it takes. The truth is I really don't know, because when I'm sort of in the mood and the emotion and the creativity of it, I don't think about time. Time becomes. But I do have some different practices where I make a lot of my birds 6 at a time. Now you would say, well, why 6? Well, the original answer was that's how big the block of wood was that I started with, and that's the size of the birds that I can get out of the block of wood. But the reason for it, as a practice of mine, is that I want to capture the spirit and energy of the bird that I'm trying to create. And if I just did one, maybe I would be successful, maybe not. But if you sit there and you carve away on this block of wood and you do it 6 times, by the time you got to the 6th one, you understand the bird, you understand its size, its energy, its weight, its texture, and it creates a certain muscle memory for me in the bird, which I like. It bonds me to the bird. And the other thing I've done is I've created these owls out of old decoys, duck decoys. And I like the idea of reuse and recycle and repurpose, and that I can bring a new spirit to something old gives me a lot of pleasure. And it's all about the creative process and letting yourself flow into the project that you're working on. And I can't say any of them take me 3 weeks, but I can tell you that I spend a lot of time at it. It gives me great joy, and it's a wonderful opportunity to share with people part of the natural world.
When you say you do 6 birds at a time, are you doing 6 of the same bird?
Yes. Yes. So I take a block of wood, I take my old legal files, which I use the oak tag legal files, and I draw it out. And I draw out the pattern, the profile pattern, the top pattern, and then I start working away on a block of wood. And I'm literally doing, I don't do 6, I do in sequence, of course, but I'll rough them all out, then I'll refine them all out, and then some days I'm an optometrist, I'll put eyes in all of them. But I make the feet out of little wires, and I make the legs out of little wires, and I make everything but the eyes. The eyes are glass eyes. It's a process. It's to me, it's joyful. And I didn't do it for money. I didn't do it for anything, just out of the pure joy of doing it. I've been doing it probably for 20 years, and this is the first time I've displayed them publicly. And I'm proud to be part of this place and this time with all of you.
I think a lot of it's very similar to the chipping away. I think watercolor, you have to build up layers, and you have to wait for every layer to dry. I don't know if anyone's ever watercolored before, but the first layer is very thin and it's fluid. And if you want to get a lot of depth, you have to keep going at it for days, and so you just have to wait in between. And I think with wood carving too, you have to keep going at it to create that depth.
Yeah, it's true.
It's almost like a meditative practice.
Oh yeah, it's timeless. I go in my workshop, my wife asked me what I did. I almost can't tell you because I don't, you're lost in it, and that's part of the creative process that I love. And and I hope that the love that we try to put into our art shows. I don't think you can look at anything like this painting and not have some emotion and have some movement and have some reaction. And I think that's the gift.
What's your favorite word?
Cedar waxwing. I love cedar waxwings. They're a lot of people don't. They see them, but you don't see them. But if you look at one close up, you will never forget it. There is so much going on in that beautiful bird. I mean, the truth is, I love them all, but that's the one that's always stood out to me.
Yeah, they're fun to see.
And there's so many birds, I will never run out of subjects. And I always think I can do the next one better.
Anyone else have any questions?
No, you're here to auction off the painting.
Yes.
I haven't heard anything about how that happens.
So the starting bid is $2,000. And if anyone's interested in placing a bid, we can do so now. Is anyone? And just keep in mind that this is going back. So when you give, we give back. So do I hear?
Is the father allowed to give a bid?
Yes. Yes.
I can run it up maybe.
So let's do 2,100, 2,100, 2,100, 2,100. No. 2,200. Anyone? Going.
All sales tonight are supporting conservation in our state and for our birds that travel beyond our borders.
Yes. And just keep in mind, we have everything. We have all the resources in front of us. We have technology, we have health. But these birds, they cannot go on Google and find their way. They are relying on us and how we're taking care of their environment. So it's really important to have this mindset that when we give, we continue giving and supporting this planet. Okay, 2100. Okay, 2100. Thank you, everyone.
Thank